Welcome back to another episode of Tatum Talks. The Grand Prix season is in full swing and the Speedway World Cup is underway as well, and Great Britain will have another fixture to look forward to at the end of the season. It was a very early qualifier, couldn't get much earlier really, but we'll talk about that and how it all went in Landshut, and we'll have a look of what's been going on in the British season as well a little bit later on. A few things going on at the moment, still fairly early days yet, but we'll cover that shortly. But Kelv, you're back from your Bavarian adventure. How was the trip?
It was pretty good actually. I must say the weather was fantastic. Couple of 3 days on the ground, sunshine, not a cloud in the sky. Managed to actually resist the temptation of turning left from Munich Airport to
good,
to beer festival. But turned right and went to Landshut and found a beer festival there. Totally innocently walked in, but behaved ourselves. But yes, busy weekend, lots of racing. It was my first experience of live Speedway in 2026, so it was. It will never leave me, I think. It will never leave me. When I've been away from Speedway for several months, and the first time you get out of the car and you hear a bike going around the track, you went, yeah, I quite like that. So it always happens the first time I come back. But, Landshut and the one solar arena was bathed in sunshine for the time we were there. And as you say, the Speedway World Cup kicked off on Friday. And then the new campaign kicked off on Saturday night. Interesting lineup, stronger lineup, some fantastic performances, and to be perfectly honest, some woeful performances. Some woeful performances, and I think there are several riders that would have gone home from Landshut sort of thinking, crikey, this could be a bit of an uphill struggle this year, but we'll get into those details.
Well, when we did the preview in the last episode, when we had a chat, you did pick out that there might be one or two surprise names forcing their way into the mix, but I don't think we maybe banked on it being in the very first round with Casper Verina, and as you pointed out, he might be a rider that can handle himself well, rides with Bartosz Zmarzlik and one of these stars of Polish Speedway, but there he was, taking the checkered flag in the final, and what a personality as well, because he's there celebrating and he's whipping the crowd up, and that's the kind of thing we want as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I loved it, and even I had seen very little of him, and in the first race he finished third, but he rode out of his skin, and he nearly ran in the back of the fella that was in second place, who I can't remember now, but he went third, second, win in his first three rides. Then he touched the tapes, which was unfortunate because he got dragged in. I think it was Jason Doyle on the outside of him. He came out, had to do it the hard way. He got a second place, so he finished on 8. And then went through the LCQ, which is, it's a lottery. You can win or lose on that. But despite the fact the track was inconsistent and bumpy, he was committed to the cause, and he was a really eye-catching performance. And then in the final itself, when Bewley just sort of drifted wide coming off turn 2 to block Lambert, of course the gate opened for him and the door opened, and he sort of he just steamed in. He just steamed in there. And once he hit the front, I mean, there was no stopping him. And despite the fact that Bewley had been just outstanding all evening long, making light of the bumpy conditions, and tricky conditions, Casper Verina burst onto the international scene. And I think you're right. It was very interesting. Fantastic smile. Really catching smile, clearly delighted to have won, and really sort of outgoing sort of celebration, which I think it will have endeared himself to a lot of people, really did. So surprise winner, exciting conclusion to the meeting, and Casper Verina, come on.
I wanted to mention as well Dan Bewley, of course, being the British rider, and of course Robert Lambert making the final, but particularly Bewley going through the card in the qualifying heats. I mean, absolutely tremendous, and particularly was it heat 19 was something else. That was in the top draw.
It was. It wasn't just in the top drawer, it was out of the top drawer. It was truly a remarkable ride because he didn't need a point, did he? He didn't need to.
Exactly.
He actually didn't need to come out.
No.
He could have just put his feet up. But he came out and he was at the back. And such is the racing instinct in him and the racer in him, he sort of picked them off and then did this remarkable roar around the outside to steal it on the run to the line. It was, to me, it was arguably the race of the night when for Dan it just really didn't matter. He already had their split for the final and he was already in it. But I think it just epitomises the type of fella he is. That just he doesn't really worry about the circumstances. He just goes and races his motorbike, which is really quite refreshing, actually, in this day and age. But yeah, Bewley up until that point was just fabulous, and he rode over his skin. Good to see Robert Lambert as well hitting some form. Spoke to him actually before the meeting started, and much more relaxed, seemed more at ease with himself. And so that was encouraging. He would have been slightly disappointed not to have made the rostrum. And then that man, Bartosz Zmarzlik. Now, I cannot remember the amount of times I've said it. Well, Zmarzlik, not quite at his best tonight, but
somehow.
He's on the rostrum somehow. And, I saw him ride actually at the weekend. I saw him ride on Sunday for Lublin. And if he rides like that, then they won't beat him. I mean, he got a 15-point maximum for Lublin against Wrocław. Two wonderful lineups. I mean, some of the lineups were just staggering, and he looked fantastic. But yeah, so Zmarzlik, very much a man to be. You can't overlook him. But I think from that point of view, the result was exciting. Great to see two British riders on the final. Track wasn't great. The beginning of the meeting was difficult, and they had to have a long grading break. I think sometimes having two meetings in 2 days can be problematic, and you're seeing that the Grand Prix is being compromised. The actual main attraction, the number one event, is being compromised on Saturday night, which is a shame. But they did get it a bit better. And the last 6-7 races were probably the most exciting. But, yeah, great conclusion. It was a steady start, but a great conclusion to the opening round and a new winner. And we're up and running.
Kacper Woryna has good heritage as well. I think people don't realise this, but he himself has started really well. Of course, got this first Grand Prix win, won the Golden Helmet in Poland as well, which is obviously a big contest with all the best riders in Poland going at that. And also his grandfather. His grandfather was a Speedway rider too, Anthony, and he won at the Golden Helmet twice, but also he was Poland's first ever World Championship medalist. Going back to the 1966 in Gothenburg, and he did it again in Wrocław in 1970. So going back, people might remember the Woryna name from back in the late 60s, 70s. If you and many of our viewers and listeners do go back a bit, Kelv, I can say that. Well, that's what the stats tell us. But they may remember the name, and that is his granddad. So there you go.
I was unaware of it, but his granddad would have ridden in the Eastern Bloc days. He would have been riding a bog standard Jawa, and he obviously had a couple of highlights there where they had a different system with the World Finals. Obviously, they had the Eastern European qualifying system, where they had the continental system. They had less qualifiers. They had 6 rather than 5 or 6, I think. It's rather than 10 or 11 from the Intercontinental final. But yeah, obviously, Granddad Verina had his moment in the sun. And Casper Verina is, he's living up to the family reputation. If his granddad's still about, I think he probably was pretty proud of him in Landshut. So, yes, there's a bit of heritage going on there as well, which is always a nice backstory.
Yeah, so well done to Kacper Woryna. Now we move on as far as the Grand Prix is concerned. The next round is in Prague, another place where you'll be heading to avoid a potential beer tent problem there again, Kelv. But I think you come in with great experience into this round.
Major challenge, mate. It's a major challenge. I can't tell you how difficult it is. It's one of those things that, to me, I don't know. The older I get, the more challenging it becomes somehow. I think the temptation just seems to be just too tough. But no, yes, Prague obviously has its highlights and its attractions. But we've been going to the Marketa Stadium for donkey's years. It's been almost ever present since the Grand Prix started back in '95. Not the best track, not the worst track. Weather can be an issue. Sometimes you can get thunderstorms kicking about. Let's hope that we don't. And we get a good Grand Prix. Zmarzlik knows how to win there. He's won there before. Can Verina back it up? Of course, that'll be the question that really kicks on next week. You know, the way of expectation, very different going into second round as championship leader. Before we really focus hard on it, I think we need to just mention the fact that there were winners and losers in Landshut, and there were some big hitters that missed out. Lebedevs, Leon Madsen, Michael Jepsen Jensen, those three alone. Really poor. Max Frick. What happened to Max Frick? And I'm just thinking, right, in the UK, ridden in the UK for years, and the track was tricky and bumpy. He didn't seem to get to grips with it at all. And Leon Madsen and Michael Jepsen Jensen, two riders that were really determined to get back in the Grand Prix, and then just seemed to down tools. They just didn't perform at all. So they put themselves on the back foot, and they will need to, bounce back to top form in Prague. And Madsen did it last year as an injury replacement for Jason Doyle. And riders like Doyle and Lindgren, they had solid performances. You know, they've kicked off just outside the final, picking up double figures, and I think they'll be relatively pleased. But as I say, there's probably 4 riders there that will thinking, crikey, you know, all of a sudden this is a season, because it's only 10 rounds, Ian. It's only 10 rounds. So all of a sudden you got to be thinking, well, just got to make the top 7, you know, to secure your future, because they're a long way out. And Brady Kurtz, of course, we can't overlook Brady Kurtz. Brady Kurtz had a tough night, and heat 20 was where it went wrong for him. Obviously Bartosz Zmarzlik didn't do him any favours in heat 11 when he made sure that he didn't score any points. Zmarzlik, there was no way he was going to get round the outside of Zmarzlik. He dropped points there. But if he could have won heat 20, he would have been straight to the final. It would have been a very different night. You know, to me, and those are the fine margins. And of course, all of a sudden he missed out in the LCQ and finished last in the LCQ and only came away with 8 points. So, you know, to me, I suspect that wasn't what they were looking for. So, yeah, all sorts of twists and turns. And I think it sets it up brilliantly for the second round.
And as you say as well, that fine margin, you know, come later on in the season when we're starting to look at the shake-up, you know, therefore Brady Kurtz now already 8 points behind Bartosz Zmarzlik and a lot more behind Woryna, who's obviously bagged 20 in the opening round now. You know, that can be a big mountain to climb. And we saw actually maybe in some ways the damage done in the early rounds for Brady Kurtz last time as well. You know, when it came down, you know, when it came down to that 1 point difference.
Yeah, and it was probably, yes, it was 1 point in the end because of that stunning performance he had, like 5 Grand Prix wins second half of the season. But it was actually in the Marketa when he fell off in the LCQ that really hurt him because he dropped a chunk of points there. Again, I'm going to have a whinge about the system. Verina, fantastic, love him, fully paid up member of the fan club. Lifelong member, I'm going to be a season ticket holder, the whole 9 yards, but he turned 11 points into 20. I'm not sure it's right.
Well, if you're Dan Bewley and you've gone through the card and only dropped, you know, the 1 point or whatever throughout your rides.
1 point.
Yeah.
1 point. 1 point effectively, in old money. And you get outscored by a bloke who's been up and down like a yo-yo. Yeah, Mr. Entertainment. I don't know about that, Ian. I don't know. But, hey, you know, who am I to say that that's wrong? But, so we've got through that. The Marketa with Brady Kurtz. It hasn't just quite clicked yet for Kurtz. I think he's riding well. I think he is. Is it right in the Polish league that you get excluded if you move at the start? you know that? Because
I think it is. Yeah,
because I watched Lublin v Wrocław on Sunday, and Kurtz got thrown out of a race, and I don't know why. I've got no idea. To me, it seemed scandalous, the decision, but they went off the start, ran the first corner, and the red lights came on, and he got thrown out. And I can only presume that the referee must have imagined that he moved.
Yeah, I think as well, I'm not sure, because the way the tracks are set up in Poland, similar to GP venues, I think they have much more data from the transponders. Whereas in Britain, we just have the sort of the line across the start line that triggers it. Whereas in Poland, they've got it's under the track. It's a metal wire. It's a cable under the track that just detects as you cross it. But I think in Poland they've got multiple loops around, and they pull all sorts of data from it, and they can tell where a rider does most of his overtakes and undertakes and all this kind of stuff. So I think as soon as the thing moves, that it pulls you.
And I think that that's all very well, but it's too much. It was wrong call, in my opinion. But look, Brady Kurtz is a mature man. He's the world number 2. He's riding well. He just hasn't had anything go for him quite yet. And I expect him to play. I'm sure he's going to make his presence felt on the Grand Prix scene very soon. And of course, Manchester's not far away, rounds 3 and 4. That's early June. So I'm sure he's focusing on that. But yeah, next week, is a big Grand Prix for him. He's got to be in the final. Because the problem is that Bartosz Zmarzlik rarely misses out. He's remarkable. And it's boring to a degree, but his consistency is remarkable.
And when you look at the other tracks that are coming up on the radar, as you mentioned, obviously Manchester, we know Zmarzlik's capable of getting to a final there. Wrocław is exactly. So he's we know it's not going to be a track where he might struggle. Of course, he's not. Wrocław then is after that. Melilla, Łódź, Riga, Wołyń, Torrance. So these are all places where he's. I mean, obviously Łódź is the new one, but he's ridden it. And I'm sure he's ridden it very well. So
I don't think Łódź is going to be too much of a challenge for him. I think he'll be probably very comfortable there. And as you reel those names off of the venues, I don't. Watching him over the last 4 years, winning 4 consecutive World Championships, none of those tracks, even when he's been under huge pressure, he's still managed to grind results out. So, as I say, the onus will be on. You've got to go into the next 9 rounds believing that he's not going to slip up. You can't have that as a way. Well, he's going to slip up one round. He hasn't done. And as I say, when I saw him ride on Sunday for Lublin in a league match with a lineup that is staggering.
It's like a Grand Prix, isn't it?
Every bit as good as a Grand Prix. You're sort of thinking he goes through the card, beats Laguta, beats Bewley, beats Brady Kurtz. The hardest race he had was to beat Kowalik, I think, who made him work very hard. But I think, he's going to be a man to beat again. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the Marketa. I think if they get Thomas Topinka, gets the track right, I think it could be an exciting evening. And as I say, there are riders going into that meeting on a recovery mission, desperate for points. The 2 Danish riders in particular. And for Brady Kurtz, I think he will be doubly determined to get to the latter stages.
Just so a bit of an aside, really, but I know you were talking about this on the commentary on TNT during the meeting, but you'd had a look at the bikes and you'd sort of been geeking at what was going on and talking about these, obviously the laptops. We see that now. I've done an interview with Dan Bewley about the laptops, and he actually says it's actually in some respects nothing new, because he owns a Godden that you can plug in to some kind of device to update the timing and stuff. But that's what they're doing, isn't it? It's updating the ignition timing and what have you. But you were also saying about how looking at Zmarzlik's bike, it looked different at the back end, and he's got some sort of thing going on there?
Yeah. They are experimenting with different designs on the bike. The geometry of the bike, I believe, is the same, but the actual materials that are being used, they're experimenting, definitely. And the rear end of the frame, it was not one piece. It was actually where it bolts on to the front end of the frame. This is very much layman's terms, is normally one piece, and they've got a design where it actually comes up short, and then they have plates that go from the rear end onto the front end. That I haven't seen before. They also have a very specific design to the actual subframe, is what they call it, the subframe, which is not box section, it's close to it. But clearly a lot of thought going into that, to how the bike behaves, possibly to get him off the start a little bit better. He is also using an ignition box this year, not the same as Bewley and Kurtz. It's not the same, but it's one made in Poland. So clearly, they have reacted to what Kurtz did last year, and they can reprogram and remap the ignition as well. So, to me, they haven't been idle in the winter. Bike's running well. And clearly that, the difference between winning and losing in Speedway is so small. So fine margins to try and gain an advantage, even if it's psychological, even if it's riders looking at it thinking, crikey, you know what I mean? It just might just sort of unsettle you a touch and thinking, well, what are they up to? But, it is interesting just to have a bit of a smooch around the pitch to see what's going on. And that's a benefit, of course, of being there.
But it's a side of things that when you look at other motorsports, Formula One or MotoGP, you're looking at the technical advances that the individual drivers or riders are making, and that's the advantage. What a Ferrari got that Mercedes haven't, for example. But it's not really talked about much in Speedway, but this kind of stuff is going on, isn't it? These little technical advantages, however small they may be, but you're talking milliseconds sometimes, and getting that advantage now is ever more important.
It is, and because everybody's got good kit. To me, back in the day, there was always quite a big disparity between people's equipment levels. Now everybody's got good engines, good bikes, good mechanics. That is a given. So therefore you've got to be pushing the boundaries. And I think at no point at this time, the engine development is pretty much maxed out with the design and the rules we have. So riders are there looking elsewhere, the frame, the ignition side of it, stuff that they can play with. There are new carburetors on the market this year. I think 3 different types of carburetor that have popped up. So yes, there is some development going on. It isn't as significant as what goes on in MotoGP, for example, but nonetheless, it is something that is going on. I think in Speedway sometimes it's possibly not so interesting to the audience because they're not motorcyclists. They don't ride a Bartosz Zmarzlik replica to work. You know what I mean? They watch Speedway. So you sort of have to find that balance about it, but there's no harm in pointing out that he's using something slightly different.
Yeah, I think this is it, because everybody assumes that everybody's on the same bike, and in many ways they are, but that doesn't mean that certain riders have their own modifications to their bike, for example. Yeah,
exactly that, Ian. Each rider will put their own stamp on the bike. Fundamentally, the geometry of the bike and the parameters of it are pretty much locked in. The experimentation of moving engines around, wheelbases, seat position, handlebar position, all of those ergonomics that are very important change with a rider like Ben Cook, who's a smaller guy, and then you've got riders like Jason Doyle, Martin Vasilik, taller guys. Inevitably, they're going to want their handlebars and seat position, their footrest position in a slightly different position to be comfortable. But the actual reality of where the bike sits and where the engine sits, that's pretty much cast in stone now. But there are still areas that these guys are focusing on trying to tweak and gain an advantage. So, yeah, it's kind of cool to see it.
Before all of that in Landshut, then it was the World Cup qualifier, the semi-final for the Speedway World Cup, and the formula there was simple. You've got to win it to get through to the final. There was no prize for second place. There's no last chance, race off or anything coming up. So really, bit of pressure on Great Britain going into that, maybe because they had to win it. There was no mistakes. And when you had the Czech Republic and Germany on their home track, we were saying, this is not necessarily a given, but it was a strong performance from the Great Britain side ultimately.
Yes, it was, and you are right. They were vulnerable if they'd lost one of their big hitters. They elected Ollie Allen, elected to take young Will Kearns with him as reserve rider, which I think surprised a lot of people. It surprised me, actually. I think Will would have given absolutely everything if he'd been called upon. And I actually had a bit of a dig at Ollie on Saturday because he worked with me. I said, why didn't you give him a ride in heats 19 and 20? Why don't you just throw him out there? Because we'd already qualified in heat 17. And he went, sort of on the back foot a bit. But but I think Will would have benefited. It would have been better than him just being a spectator. But yes, we are a little bit vulnerable at the moment. Adam Ellis out. Ty Woofenden, whether he would be fit for the World Cup final, not sure. Obviously, that's something that will be considered. But if not, I think that we need to look at an experienced rider to come in as well to bolster the team. But they did the business, and Robert Lambert and Bewley, Tom Brennan led from the front. I think Leon Flint found it difficult, but inevitably those other three guys did the job. They could have slipped up, but they didn't. And, the Czech Republic, just not quite consistent enough, and Germany likewise, just not quite good enough to put pressure on. But job done from the point of view of Great Britain, and it will be a hell of a night in Warsaw. It will be a hell of a night. They like that championship, the Poles, and already we're 3/4 of the way there. I'm pretty convinced that Denmark will be the other team. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't. So it'll be a terrific night, the World Cup final in the PGE Narodowy.
Yeah, get those letters in there.
Yeah.
The PGE Narodowy, the venue for the Speedway World Cup final. So that's going to be a great night in Warsaw. Yeah, I think a lot was said about Leon Flint and all that. I felt though when you look at it, he always, in some ways, I don't know, was he taking one for the team? It was the freshly graded track. Sometimes freshly slopped up track. It wasn't easy conditions for him out there. He was always going into the unknown, and maybe him going out there just allowed the track to settle down for the other guys later. I don't know what maybe the thinking.
Yeah,
in that
you
position
could look at it that way. I think that's a valid point, and he did get the rough end of the stick from that point of view. Whether he could have done more, possibly. But let's see. I think if Adam Ellis is fit, or if Ty Woofenden is rocking and rolling in Poland, I'm not sure he'll be in the World Cup final. I'm not sure. I think there would be. I think to win the World Cup final, I think Britain needs to have a stronger fourth rider, definitely, because Australia have got 4 strong riders, Poland have, and Denmark have. It will be a terrific lineup. But as I say, for the moment, they can relax on that because there's a bit of time to go before that at the end of August. But, two reasonable meetings. They weren't classics, because track conditions didn't allow it to be. But, as I say, in the end, particularly on Saturday night, we had an exciting conclusion, which, that's what people will remember.
So the next part of the Speedway World Cup is in August, 7th of August in Riga. So a bit of a time to wait yet. And then the actual final is the 29th of August in Warsaw at the PGE Narodowy Stadium.
You've got it.
Don't let them down on that one. So that's to look forward to there, and obviously there'll be twists and turns. And then just a quick look ahead beyond that. For the next thing after your trip to Prague, you have to navigate the beer tents of Manchester. Then after that, for 2 nights back to back, you know the streets well though, Kelv, of Gorton, and you're not going to wash up in any of the hostelries or the Wetherspoons or anything there.
Yes.
The Diamond Lodge.
Not quite the same as Wenceslas Square or the Munich, but I'm sure we'll manage somehow, Ian. We'll manage somehow. But
it's the two meetings back to back. What you were talking about before there, that maybe tracks are struggling there. Manchester now, Andy Meredith and his team, and I think it's a bit, again, it's a Speedway of Nations in itself of track staff at these kind of events, because they'll be coming from all over the country to get involved and help out. But with that experience of last year, we saw incredible Grand Prix on the Friday night last year. Maybe not quite so good, but still not the worst Grand Prix of all time on the Saturday. But again, it's going to have to handle quite a lot of racing, and there's a sprint as well, isn't there, as part of the qualifying?
Yeah, the first sprint of the season's on Friday night, or Friday afternoon, excuse me. And yes, but just in what you've said, if you think about what you've just said, Friday night was probably, a Grand Prix for the ages, arguably one of the better Grand Prix we've ever witnessed. Saturday night was excellent, but it wasn't as good. Why wasn't it as good? Track wasn't as good. Simple as that. Yeah, but ultimately, there's no way that you can have, it's impossible to have the same conditions. And the track gets worn. It needs to settle. It needs time to just settle. It definitely does. But that was introduced by Discovery and the French, and they decided it, and it's been carried on. Whether that continues in the future, it'll be interesting. Actually, it'll be interesting to see if that's maintained. But I think Manchester's probably one of the better places to be able to do it. I think the material they use, the expertise they have there, the fact that it is resistant to the weather, they can cope with weather there. They have to. It's Manchester. So yeah. I think that's a couple of rounds I'm sure a lot of people are excited about, because, the reputation that was gained last year, as a incredible Speedway we saw there last year.
They've certainly put a marker down of something to live up to, haven't they? And it's hard to maybe live up to that every time. But I just hope the weather plays ball, and we'll at least have a good contest there, because we know the racing can be fantastic.
Sure. I think all the time I've been there for the British finals, or Grand Prix, or World or Speedway of Nations, we've had meetings that haven't been quite as exciting, but I think by and large it delivers pretty much every time. You don't get a bad meeting there. You might get one that's not quite as good, but you don't get bad meetings there. You
usually get at least one or two top races, in any meeting. There's always at least a moment.
Yeah, breathtaking stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it was interesting last year, because coming into last year, a lot of people were saying that Zmarzlik couldn't win there. It was a bogey track. He'd had a bad crash there in the Speedway of Nations. He was concussed, and he hadn't really had a good run there. But he sort of, I think he had a win in a second, so it wasn't too bad, was it? For a place he didn't like. Not so bad. So it will be a real tear up, I'm sure. And I think for British fans, it's a real treat for them to be able to have two Grand Prix, arguably one of the better venues in World Speedway.
Just to toss this out there, because even Scotty weighed in on this debate last week. Could we soon see a Grand Prix of Scotland in Glasgow?
I think it's a place that could be seriously considered. I think what the Fasenas have done there since they bought it and invested in it has been remarkable. I think they're pretty forward thinking. I look at the racetrack. I've talked to Scott. I've seen some of the racing from there. The racing is good. It's a major city. Not going for it. They seem to be able to cope with weather. I think that's probably the biggest danger in it. The biggest danger is weather. But I'm sure there's lots being discussed, and the new promoter, Mayfield Sports Events, they'll be looking at different options here, there, and everywhere. But I could. It wouldn't be a complete surprise, would it? I think they would love it. I think they would love it.
It'll be massive. It'll be massive. I know that Armando Castagna has mentioned it as well.
I don't know what the capacity is. What's the capacity?
Well, the capacity, I don't know. I would have thought it'd be a few thousand, but I think that would be. It doesn't matter what the capacity is because I think they would make the capacity quite sizable because they've got access around the stadium.
Is there opportunities to actually increase the capacity there with temporary standing?
I believe that would be the case. Yeah.
But to answer to your question, I think it would be if that came up on the calendar. I think it would be a benefit. I think it would enhance the series, and I'd like to think I'd be really excited about that.
Yeah, one to watch, definitely, and interesting to see how it goes. Because Glasgow, obviously, it's held some major FIM events. They had the Grand Prix Challenge there a couple of years ago. They've got a Grand Prix qualifier this year, so they're still getting these FIM taster meetings, I guess, if you like, for at international individual levels. So that will be an interesting.
I'm sure they can have a Grand Prix. It'll come down to finances. It'll come down to finances, doing a deal with Mayfield if they are that keen. And if the numbers crunched and it looked good, then who knows? We might have a double header at Manchester and then crack on the next week to Glasgow. How about that?
Be all right, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
There you go.
And, I might bring my passport and pop it on.
Get yourself some of that extra strong IM brew that they sell in the shop over the road. Brew.
I mean, crikey, yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably what I'm missing. That's what I'm missing. Yeah,
iron levels.
Iron levels.
No, they do sell a stronger version of it. It comes in a glass bottle, and it's the original formula, and puts hairs on your chest, Kelv. Have a bottle of that. You don't need your Monster Energy if you have that on.
Right, okay. Don't mention that to Monster Joe, but hey, it's obviously, but that will be something to consider. But yeah, I think overall, I'd be quite keen on that idea. But there's so many rumours out there right now. I don't really want to discuss them all, but because a lot of it is just pure rumour. But there is no question that Richard Coleman and his team are going to be pretty ambitious, and they're thinking outside the box. No question.
But it's kind of what it needs, though, as well, isn't it? Because we've had the same old in many ways for quite a long time now, and even moving from the previous era to Discovery, they came in with all guns blazing. We're going to do this and that, and actually, really, we're very much still in the same place as that we previously were, by and large.
Well. To be honest, we actually regressed, because if you think about back in the day when BSI were running it, we used to go to Copenhagen, we used to go to the Friends Arena in Stockholm, we went to Australia, we used to go to these major cities with huge stadiums. Now, admittedly, that did diminish to a degree, but when we had the last generation of people, the fixture list didn't get any better. We never went to Australia, although they promised it. We didn't go into, Cardiff was cancelled. And so, look, they didn't enhance the series. They might have thought they were going to, but they didn't in the end. But from Mayfield's point of view, I get it that he needs to get a season under his belt, figure out how it works, and then I think there's no doubt that they'll want to kick on.
Yeah. Well, Mayfield, of course, involved in British Speedway as well, and the Ipswich Witches are Mayfield's horse in the race. Early days yet in the Premiership. We've had the Knockout Cup, and that's come to the point where we've got the final now coming up at the end of July, and that will be Leicester and Ipswich, who are in the Knockout Cup final. So that's something for their diary the last week of July. But the league fixtures really will maximum of 3 meetings down for some clubs, and Bellevue leading the way, 3 meetings, 3 wins, and they're up and running.
Yeah, they look good, don't they? And I think that they raced last night against Kings Lynn, an away victory there that was a good victory for them. Kings Lynn haven't. I'm a bit disappointed in Kings Lynn. I thought they'd be a bit better at home, and those are the sort of meetings actually that Rob Lyon will be looking to win if they are serious about having success this year. They didn't, and he'll be poor Rob Lyon. He's had some tough seasons.
He's got to win on the board, though. He's got to win.
I love him to bits because his enthusiasm remains. But a lot of people would have just thrown the towel in, aren't they, by now? But last night, I think that he needs to galvanise that team to beat Bellevue at home. Should do, really. Should do. But for Bellevue, they've gone now. Mark Lemon and his team will be delighted to have picked up the points away from home. And, you know, a bit of a blow for the Stars. But yeah, Bellevue going along nicely. Ipswich looked decent. They did get beat, probably their heaviest defeat of the season away at Sheffield the other night. Maybe a reality check. It's going to be quite tight for the top four. You know, I think Northampton looking vulnerable. Kings Lynn was a team that I looked at with the signing of Max Frigg. I thought they'd be really forceful this year, and I thought it could be their season, but so far not so good. But yeah, Bellevue looking good, actually, Ian. They are looking good.
They've just got that real strength with Brady and excuse me. They've just got that real strength with Brady and Kurtz. Sorry, Brady Kurtz and Dan Bewley together. It gives them that real powerhouse at the end of the meeting.
Same bloke.
Yeah, I know. I realised. I was hoping you hadn't noticed. Brady and Kurtz. What a signing.
Maybe Brady's the top half and Kurtz is the bottom.
he's so good, they sliced him in half.
Squinched together.
Yeah. Crazy things happen.
They've tried the bottom half on one the top half on another. That's something you're not going to live down for a little while, mate.
Well, you know, the way that the averages are going these days, you know, you can have two good riders, and if you can break them into four, then you know,
yeah, why not? Why not? Yeah, just cut them in half. So Brady Kurtz, who is one person,
all one man,
and Bewley is another man. Coming out in heat 13 and 15. My goodness, that's a team manager's luxury, and they are, you know, two of the best riders in the world. So it's something that will. Anywhere, home and away, it's going to be, you know, psychologically for the other two riders coming out, it's a tough one, real tough one up against those two guys because they rarely miss out. But they're going along good. You know, they don't appear to have missed Jamin Litzy, who was very much in the middle part of the team. I'm trying to think, who did they have? Did they have a guest last night? I can't remember. But
they had Kai Thompson of Northampton guested for them and got 4 points, I think it was.
Who's he guesting for?
Peter Kildemand, who's broken his collarbone.
There we go.
Yeah.
So he's going to be out for a month or so, I presume. So, yeah, look, going along nicely. I think, of course, they will be there or thereabouts. Northampton, we've spoken about, need to win a meeting, really. Whatever you say, they just need to win a meeting. They've got some injury issues right from the get-go. But for a brand new team, the enthusiasm will wane quickly if they don't win a meeting, particularly at home. That's the problem because, you know, the enthusiasm and the crowds and with the investment and the effort that goes into that project, I'm sure, is significant. So they need to start winning at home. They haven't done so far. So fingers crossed for them. Sheffield, they look pretty good. You know, winning against the champions the other night by 14 points, I think it was actually in the end. So that was a significant victory. Yeah, it's all building up quite nicely. And guys, like you said, the Speedway season is very much in top gear now with Sweden, Denmark, Poland, and the UK Grand Prix, European meetings. I mean, there's meetings everywhere. So it's possibly, arguably, one of the busiest times of the season.
It's not going to be easy for Northampton. Their next fixture, in fact, it's a full programme of Premiership action this Thursday, the 14th of May, with Sheffield versus Northampton, their next stop. And still looking for their first win. That's not going to be an easy place to go for Northampton. And then they've got Leicester at home next week. So that's their next 2 fixtures coming up.
Yeah, exactly. And Chris Adams will need to be really smart with the guests, and he's going to have to instill some real enthusiasm and commitment from the troops, because I don't envy the task, because they haven't won yet. I think that they have 4 meetings so far.
Yeah, this will be their 4th. Coming up.
They haven't won a meeting, I know that.
Oh no, but well, this will be the first league meeting, I think. They've been in the Knockout Cup until now, so
sure.
Yeah.
So this league match away at Sheffield, I'm not expecting them to win. I would think that Simon Stead will be very much looking at this fixture for maximum score. They'll pick up the points. For Northampton, yes, it's an important campaign. Of course it is. They need to, if they can't win with this team, they need to change it. If they can, they need to change it, because I think from the league's perspective and financially, and for the crowd, which inevitably is a new crowd, people experimenting with it, they need to start winning. They simply need to win meetings, and that will then instill the confidence and enthusiasm for people to come along. If they don't, I think by July, I think the crowd will be half what it was at the beginning.
Yeah, they've got good riders in there, but I know Chris Adams' frustration is that some riders also have not really delivered their full potential perhaps yet. Things will settle down, but obviously they've got these meetings on the road to come as well. I say that their main focus so far has been on the Cup, so really for the league they've got a relatively clean slate. But Kai Thompson, who we just talked about having guested for Bellevue, he put some big points away, 16. They had it's a big crash last week in the meeting between Northampton and Kings Lynn, where Cooper Rushen, Jody Scott and Luke Harrison all combined together, and Luke Harrison and Jody Scott were withdrawn from the meeting, so it was all down to all hands to the pump for Kai Thompson, who had a very busy night indeed, but really nonetheless beat all people in front of him, including Max Frick as well. So that was a big moment for him. Max Frick was all over him for 4 laps, but he managed to hold him off, and that's for a young rider like that, that's going to really boost his confidence as well, and that's what Northampton need more of that.
Exactly. Absolutely, you nailed it. And I think that if they can have that sort of spirit and that sort of sense of determination, then let's hope that they can get to winning ways. And their next home match is vitally important in the league, is vitally important, because that honeymoon period that you get when teams either come up into the Premiership or in this particular case, we've got a brand new team. It will be short-lived if they can't win. People's patience, they'll drift away. So I keep my fingers crossed for that, because it was obviously a really traumatic winter for the sport. Miraculously, they got 6 teams to come to tapes. You don't want to see Northampton just be, a financial disaster because people drift away, because without TV support and money coming from television, the turnstiles are going to be extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it. If you can get through the turnstiles in whatever form, then please do take some Speedway in. I say it's a busy week this week, time of releasing this. If you're listening to this next week, then it's already happened. But plenty of meetings going on through this week and through this month, actually. As Kelv mentioned, it's a busy time for me. My next stop is Thursday night, because we've got Ipswich versus Bellevue on BSN, which will be a tasty one as well. And it's all hands to the pump, and plenty of fixtures on the way. But yeah, that's going to be good. I think Ipswich Bellevue is always a fixture that doesn't really need selling anyway. You know what you're going to get there. No,
there's a bit of an edge to that venue, that meeting, and I think it'd be interesting to see how that works out. I would fancy Ipswich at home, but it could be really tight. They would need to be, firing. I'll tell you a rider's going well this year is Danny King. Danny King is going really good. And I think that for the first time in a long time, he's fit. He's fit. And he's had that hand injury for a while. But I've just been keeping an eye on the scores. And Danny's been, really piling on the points, big style. Richard Lawson, rock solid as always. Brennan, pretty good, pretty reliable. And Muszlak, he knows the tracks, experienced rider. So, yeah, they've actually done well, Ipswich, to put that sort of team together, because it was, you could say it was almost impossible. You can't replace the two superstars they lost, but they've put together a solid outfit that could win the league. To me, you could see it winning the league. But that's a tasty encounter next week. It's one to keep an eye out for.
And the other fixture on Thursday is Leicester and Kings Lynn, and obviously Leicester looking to crack on as well, and Kings Lynn, well, Rob Lyon, as you say, looking to retain most of his hair because it's been torn out quite a bit.
He's done very well to do so. But I think Rob's got one of these constitutions and characters. He's very laid back. He certainly appears to me. Maybe when he goes home, he just destroys the house and it has to be redecorated every week. But I don't know. But he's been through the mire a bit. But yeah, he'll be looking for an improvement. If they can push Leicester, they need to. They really do need to get their season really up and running. They've got good riders, but it hasn't quite clicked so far. But that could be quite good. And Leicester, I'll tell you another rider. Get this. Get this in.
Go on, Kelv.
The rider that is quietly going about, understated, but tearing it up, home and abroad. Ryan Douglas.
Oh, yes.
Ryan Douglas. I mean, what a start to the season for that man. I mean, crikey. I've seen some of the scores in Poland as well as here. And I think he's riding in one of the Scandinavian teams as well, either Sweden or Denmark. I can't remember. But he's scoring points everywhere. Fantastic start to the season.
He's been doing it for the last couple of seasons, really, but it's really come to the fore, I think, this year. He's taken a step up, I think, in the position of his team. He's riding for Poznan, I think, isn't he, in Poland? And he's been, working his way through the team. But now you're seeing the Polish journalists sort of latching on now and talking about him for getting an extra Liga place, and could he be a rider to follow in the footsteps of, say, Ben Cook obviously has made a step up now to the full extra Liga side. He's riding with Lezno and taking on that responsibility and doing all right, more than all right. So he's definitely a rider on an upward curve. He left behind doing Championship Speedway. Of course, he was riding for Scunthorpe for many years. He's just doing the Premiership now to allow him to do more on the continent, and it's pleasing to see that decision's paying off, and he's cracking on.
Yeah. Delighted to see it, and like him, nice guy, and I think that he is. It's an ambitious move. He's not a kid. He's been around a while, but he's having a great start to the season. So fair play to him, and he's doing a good job for Leicester. So yeah, again, a rider that's really made a decision to kick on. Fair play.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, so plenty of other fixtures coming up. Just looking ahead next week, not too much in the Premiership, but actually Kings Lynn versus Ipswich, which will be a nice, steady, easy one, I'm sure, for Kings Lynn there. Always a bit of a feisty trip.
That's a local derby, isn't it?
The Old Farm Derby, I think they call it. And Northampton and Leicester is the one meeting on Thursday as far as the Premiership's concerned. There's loads in the Championship, very busy indeed, but you get all those fixtures online. But loads of Speedway going on. Get down there and take some in yourself. And then, of course, it'll be down to the Grand Prix for you, Kelv, over to Prague.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a venue I've been to numerous times, know it inside out. It's it's not a super sexy stadium, but it's a great place to go to for fans, because you've got a wonderful place to visit in the city, and you can watch Grand Prix Speedway up at the Marquetta as well. So yeah, excited about going.
Brilliant stuff. Well, have a safe trip there and back. Don't get lost in any more beer tents. And yeah.
I've got Google Maps all planned in. It's all plumbed in. Don't worry.
3 rings when you get home.
I think I put the wrong address in last time. That was it. It's an easy mistake to make.
What is the ale of choice in the Czech Republic? What is it? They go, is it Star?
Well, they do their own Budweiser, don't they?
Oh, the Budvar thing.
Yeah. Well, that's a bit special, but there is a fantastic Guinness bar.
I can tell you're looking excited about this.
Yeah, no. I've only been there once, promise.
That was the look of a guy who's experienced a lot of Guinness bars, and this was like one of the top ones.
Nigel Pearson, bless him. Nigel Pearson and I own it. No, we had a World Cup there one week. Crikey.
What, drinking Guinness or Speedway?
Well, I can't remember. It was a remarkable week. But I do remember listening to somebody's radio, and we were listening to a cricket test match from the UK sat outside, and it was just remarkable. And we were like then reenacting forward defensives outside and all these very, very confused tourists moving around as I was going for the square cover drive. I think Nigel was on the back foot a bit. It was marvellous times, but no, it's a great place to go.
Good stuff. Sounds like it'll be fun. Have a great trip, Kelvin. We'll speak soon.
Thank you very much.